Okay, uh, welcome. This is Mr. Conrad. I'm going to be going over the format and some information about the 2020 reformatted AP Government exam. So as we get started on these next few weeks here in the lead up to the exam, just want to give you an idea of what we're working forward, trying to prepare you for. Okay, so the test date. This is important. Our original test date for the AP Gov exam was May 4th. Everything has been pushed back a week. So now our testing date is going to be on May 11th, so at 4 o'clock. So even if you originally signed up for the late testing window, it is assumed that you are still taking the original testing date now. So that's everyone is assumed to be taking the Monday, May 11th exam at 4 o'clock p.m. There is a makeup date on June 1st at noon, but technically this is only for people who have technical difficulties or some other kind of significant disruption on the May 11th exam date. Now, ultimately, if you choose not to take the May 11th exam, it's kind of up to your own discretion if you would rather wait to the June 1st, but the danger in that is if something goes wrong on your test on the June 1st exam, then you're out of luck. I am going to assume for the purposes of this course that everyone is taking it on the 11th. I'm going to aim my preparation over the next 3 weeks to get you ready as I can for the 11th. If you choose for some reason to take it on the 1st, I will of course still be available if you have specific questions or anything after the 11th, but I'm going to tailor the majority of my exam prep to get people ready for the May 11th exam. Now, how this is going to work is you're going to receive an electronic ticket through your email and on your College Board account about 2 days prior to the first testing date on May 11th. If you are going to take the exam on May 11th, you're going to use that ticket to take it. If you don't use that ticket, then you're going to receive another ticket in the lead up to the June 1st makeup exam, and you can use that for that exam. If you don't use that ticket, then they're just going to assume you're not taking the exam. So if you decide for whatever reason you're just not interested in this exam anymore with the new format, or you're just not feeling it, that's fine. You don't have to alert anyone to that fact officially. You can just not use either one of those tickets. Now, if, let's say that you're taking, like most people, the May 11th exam, and something happens during that test, your browser freezes or house catches on fire or something like that, there is going to be a link provided in that testing platform where you can request, you can kind of alert them to what's happening and request to take the makeup exam instead. They will review those in time and let you know, and as long as you have some kind of legitimate reason, they will let you take the makeup exam on June 1st. Now, they're advising everyone to log into the testing platform between 15 and 30 minutes in advance of the start of the test. You're going to have some security questions to answer. You're going to have some setup to do. So make sure on the 11th you log in probably around 3:30 to get started with the program. Okay, the scoring of the exam. I have to tell you, when this new format first came out, I was pretty upset about it. It is, without a doubt, probably going to be more challenging for most people than the regular original exam format would have been. Most people do better on the multiple choice portion of the test than they do on the FRQs, and that sort of balances things out. However, I want to console you a little bit that that does not necessarily mean you're going to do miserably on the exam and have no chance of getting any credit for it, because everybody's going to be in the same boat. This is not just true of you, but it's true of people all around the country. They're going to probably do worse than they would have on the original exam format. AP tries really hard to make sure that their tests are roughly equivalent in difficulty from year to year. So what's going to happen is after everybody takes this test, they're going to run it through a whole bunch of statistical tests, and they're going to run it through by psychologists and figure out how much more difficult it is than a regular AP exam. And they're going to adjust their scoring based on that. So the cutoff for what it takes to get a 3 or 4 or 5 is going to be adjusted based on how much more difficult this test is than it normally is. So don't worry too much. Just do the best you can and see how things fall. Okay, how you'll submit your response, you can either type it or handwrite it. Probably 85, 90%, maybe more, will choose to type the response. I know that's what I would do. You can write generally a lot faster if you type than if you handwrite, but you can handwrite. If you type it, you can either write it in another program, Word, Google Docs, whatever you like, and then save that and upload it into their testing platform as a file, or you can write it in a separate program and copy and paste it into their testing platform. Either way is fine. If you handwrite your test response, you can take a photo of it and then upload the file. You're going to get a lot more information about this starting the week of April 27th from AP. They're going to provide a lot more information about how exactly this is going to work to get you very comfortable with the test day experience. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty, talk about the actual exam format of what you're going to see. There are 2 free response questions that you're going to be taking for this exam. That's it. Okay, the first question is the most difficult one. Question 1 is called the argument essay. It's going to be a 25-minute question. Take about 25 minutes to read it, write your response, and then reserve 5 minutes to upload, make sure everything is set for submitting your response. The timer you're going to see in your testing window is going to show 30 minutes. So make sure you take only about 25 of that to write your response and then reserve a few minutes to upload your response. This question is valued at 60% of the entire test. It's going to assess your ability to articulate a defensible claim or thesis that responds directly to the question and establishes a line of reasoning. It's going to ask you to provide evidence to support your thesis from one of the foundational documents that they will provide for you. Or, excuse me, that's the first part. You have to use foundational document for the first part. And then they're going to ask you to provide a second piece of evidence from either a second foundational document of your choice or any knowledge from the course that you have gained that you could also use to support your claim or thesis. And then, of course, they're looking for your ability to use reasoning to explain why both of those pieces of information, of evidence, support the claim or thesis that you've made. Now, if you have information about the old format of the exam, you have a prep book or something like that, this is very similar, almost exactly like what they used to call question 4 from the original exam format. The only thing that they have changed from this to cut down on the time requirement a little bit is they have eliminated the requirement that you provide an alternative point of view that contrasts with your thesis. You used to have to do that. You do not have to do that for this version of this essay. So this is the official rubric that they have released for the argument essay. I'm not a huge fan of how cluttered this scoring guide is, but I will post this for you. There's a second page I'll show you in a minute. But there's 3 parts to this that they're looking for. Row A is your claim or thesis statement. So as we just said before, they're looking for you to respond to the prompt with a defensible claim or thesis that establishes a line of reasoning. And to do that, you need to make sure you respond directly to the prompt and do not do something like just rewording the question in the form of a statement. You also need to make sure that you establish a line of reasoning that you're going to be able to use as you write the essay. The second part, row B as they call it, is the meat of your response. This is your evidence, those 2 pieces of evidence. So the first one has to be one of the foundational documents to explain how that supports your thesis. And then the second one can either be another foundational document or something else of your choice. Both of these pieces of evidence have to be, they have to specifically and relevantly support the claim or thesis that you're making. And then the final part is your reasoning. To get both points for this, you need to explain how or why both pieces of evidence support the claim or thesis. You can get 1 point if you just explain adequately how one of those pieces of evidence, but you want to try to, of course, do that for both. So here's an example of what this question format looks like. They're going to give you a statement, probably, that looks somewhat like this. So this question says, the equality of opportunity is a central value in the American political system. Choose either Congress or the Supreme Court and present an argument for why your choice is most responsible for advancing the principle of equality of opportunity in the United States. So, another way of saying that would be, which has done a better job, the Congress or the Supreme Court, at providing for equality of opportunity to people in the United States? So you're going to use one piece of evidence from this list they provide to you, 14th Amendment, Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, or Federalist 78, and in your response, the second part of the prompt is just sort of reminding you of exactly what they're asking you to do. So you're going to use that one of those documents they provide for you, and then of course a second piece of evidence of your choice, and making sure that you provide a quality thesis statement and good reasoning. Okay, question 2 is called the concept application question. This is going to be a 15-minute writing prompt, and then again, you're going to want to reserve about 5 minutes to make sure that your response uploads properly. So they're going to give you a 20-minute timer. Take about 15 of those minutes to write your response, 5 minutes to upload. This is worth the smaller portion of the exam value, only 40%, but still significant. This obviously is not to be discounted. So this is going to present sort of an authentic scenario in government or politics, and it's trying to assess your ability to explain the effects of political institution, behavior, or process, and to transfer understanding of the things you've learned in this course and apply them to a new situation or scenario. I'll show you an example in a minute. If you have, again, a prep guide or something that talks about the old exam format, this corresponds to question number 1 from the old exam, but they've adjusted it, they've condensed it a little bit to provide for a smaller amount of time. And rather than asking you to just sort of define and explain a particular concept, everything they're going to ask you in this prompt is going to be directly directing you to relate it and apply it to the prompt. So here's an example. In the United States Congress, the majority party exerts a substantial influence over lawmaking. However, when one party has a numerical majority in each chamber of the United States Congress, there is no guarantee that legislation supported by that majority party will be passed by both chambers. Rules of each chamber independently influence the likelihood that legislation will pass in that chamber. Legislation passed by one chamber is not always passed by the other. So there's your scenario. And then they ask you to do these 3 things. Describe 2 advantages the majority party in the United States House of Representatives has in lawmaking above and beyond the numerical advantage that a majority party enjoys in floor voting. Second, describe 2 differences between House and Senate rules that may make it likely that legislation may pass in one chamber but not in the other. And then finally, explain how the differences identified in Part B can lead to the passage of a bill in one chamber but not in the other. All right, so now we've gone through the 2 question types. We'll be working on those over the next 3 weeks. Just a few other things about the test. First of all, because you're going to be taking this at home, you're going to have resources available to you. This is considered an open note test. However, I want to caution you about that a little bit. Don't think you can just waltz into this exam not knowing anything but having a textbook and a bunch of notes next to you, and you're going to be able to answer these questions effectively. If you notice, the time limit for these questions is quite short. So there's not going to be a whole lot of time, if you don't know your stuff, to go and look up everything and process that information and figure out how to use it to apply to the question. You can have references nearby. We're going to probably provide you with some cheat sheets for the court cases and for the foundational documents and things like that. But again, the questions are going to be written in such a way as there's not going to be a huge advantage because you can look things up. They're going to be written, they're going to ask you questions in a very higher level thinking sort of way. They're going to ask you to analyze and apply things, and they're not just going to be asking you straight up memorization questions about definitions of things and that type of thing. So you need to be very careful, particularly if you're using online references. If you decide to go into Google and look up something during a test, be really, really careful with that. I'm going to talk about security in a minute. But if you Google something and you visit a site, a message board or something like that, that is being used for cheating or collaboration between students, even if you go on there unintentionally and don't know that's what's happening on there, and they discover that you were on this website, you will be considered to be cheating, and there will be some pretty severe consequences for you. So I would use online resources very, very minimally, if at all. So with the security piece, AP has told us that they're using some very complex security methods to detect cheating. So they're trying to figure out people who are impersonating, taking the test in place of somebody else, people who are collaborating, people who are plagiarizing. They haven't given us a whole lot of detail intentionally about how these detection methods work, because they want people to be surprised. They don't want them to be able to game the system and figure out how it's working exactly. So I know there's going to be a lot of temptation, given this format, for you to, be texting back and forth or open up a FaceTime and talk about the questions with other people, or go online to a message board or something and figure out how to answer the question. First of all, again, there's not going to be a lot of time for doing that, but they have apparently figured out some very sophisticated ways of avoiding that. They're going to be checking, plugging all these things into plagiarism checks, and got some pretty sophisticated things here that they say will be able to detect people who are doing that sort of thing. The penalties, they say, will be very severe. If they catch you cheating, doing any of those things I listed above, they will provide your name to colleges and universities, their admissions departments, listed as having cheated on an AP exam. You do not want to be on that list, believe me. There's probably few things that would be worse for your chances of getting admitted to a college of your choice, or if you've already been admitted, few things that could be worse for your prospects going forward than getting labeled as a cheater by College Board. They're also going to send me your responses later on, and if I look over them and find something that doesn't look quite right, or looks like something that I've written for you, I can provide them information and tip them off that I think somebody may have been cheated. So just a final word of caution: cheating is absolutely not worth the risk. Guys, put this in perspective. This is a AP exam. At best, you're going to be getting a couple of credit hours for a college course that you may exempt out of. If you do something that is not allowed and you get labeled as a cheater, the consequences could be really bad. You could get denied admission. You could have your admission rescinded if you've already been accepted somewhere. Just don't do it. Just do your best. It's not a big deal if you don't get the max amount of credit on one AP exam. Okay? So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be trying to get you ready for this exam. Our plan for review is this week we're going to focus on completing and reviewing what they refer to as AP Unit 3, which is Civil Rights and Liberties. This is the unit that we were partway through when we left back in March. So Miss Bates is going to be kind of leading this week. I'll be assisting her. We're going to focus on that unit this week. Next week, we're going to focus on what they call AP Unit 1, which is Foundations of Democracy, the Constitution, federalism, stuff like that. And then week 3, which is the final week before the exam, we're going to focus on AP Unit 2, which is the branches of government. Your legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch, bureaucracy, how all of them work, and the little idiosyncrasies of those branches. So those are the only 3 units that are going to be covered on the exam. Nothing about voting in elections and stuff like that. It's going to focus on the institutions, the foundations of democracy, and civil rights and liberties. And I will be posting quite a bit of material to help you to prepare as much as we can throughout these next 3 weeks. Please contact me if you have any questions or any concerns about anything, and we will try to help you as best we can. Now, besides the in-class review we're going to be doing over the next 3 weeks, and pretty much everything we're going to be doing is going to be tailored towards getting you ready for the exam. But beyond that, you can be watching the AP videos that they're posting online. I've provided links for that a couple of times in emails and on Aspen, things like that. Every single day, there is an excellent AP Gov teacher that is posting on their official YouTube channel review videos. And it's not only on content, but it's on exam strategies, writing strategies, how to tackle these FRQs, things like that. I would also encourage you to visit the AP Classroom website, which has tons of review materials on there, sample FRQs, everything that you would need to get ready for that. All right, we'll be talking to you soon. Good luck.